Welcome to Inspire Me with Jay. My name is Jay Spillers, and my guest is Moonwalker Life. Moonwalker, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks, Jay. Good to be here with you and your audience. Yeah, and you can call me Moon if you'd prefer. Moonwalker's kind of long, but yes, Moonwalker Tucker is my name.
Okay, so you had a near-death experience. Why don't you tell our audience what happened during your near-death experience?
Yeah, so in 2010, I was 41 years old and I was in the process of executing my second suicide plan. And it was a very detailed plan. I had sought out, had been working for the military for most of my life, had served in the Air Force. 2010 was the Iraq-Afghanistan conflict mess we all remember. And I had sought out a position to go as a civilian embedded in an Army unit as a public affairs office in a brand new Department of Defense unit. And my intent was to come back in a box. Life was absolutely miserable for me. I was going through my third divorce. My health was awful. All of my relationships were full of conflict and contention and frustration and struggle. My kids weren't talking to me. I was very isolated, in a very negative mindset. I had been most of my life, kind of a depressed child, and had some physical, emotional, sexual abuse experiences as a child. And when I graduated high school and I basically ran away from home, in my mind, I thought I'm leaving the problems and so I can go build this amazing life. But what happened is that I went everywhere I was. And what happened in my life was I ended up validating the beliefs that I created as a child. And that led to year after year after year of being on antidepressants. And immediately after high school, I had tried my first suicide attempt. I'd become a meth addict and tried to overdose. And it was an absolute hot mess. I was able to kind of crawl my way out of that space and join the Air Force and try to provide a good life for my daughter. In all my best attempts, I was able to create a life that a lot of people respected and admired. I had a very high influential job with the Army. I had served in the Air Force and had a stellar 4-year career, and life looked good. I had 2 beautiful daughters. Yeah, I was going through a divorce, but that's kind of a norm thing. Was always smiling, and people really didn't know what was underneath the surface because I was numbing out with alcohol and fits of anger and antidepressants, and I was just a mess. So in 2010, feeling completely alone, like I said, I put that plan together, and I was in the process of my third divorce, and my husband was in a different state. We'd been fighting all night, until early in the morning anyway. I was crying all night, and that Friday morning, October 8th, 2010, I decided to ride my motorcycle. Had a big, beautiful Harley Fat Bob, and got on the road. And I lived in Kentucky. I was stationed at Fort Knox. So the roads are just winding and beautiful, and it's fall colors, and oh, it's just gorgeous. And I arrived at work in a much better frame of mind, more relaxed and at ease. But the moment I walked into the door, the shit show started again, and I was angry and frustrated and email fighting with my husband and all the stuff. And by the time I left work that day, I was a complete and utter mess again. And Jay, I was sitting on my bike after work, and I had committed to go serve at this local church for an event called Shine. It's an amazing event. It's dedicated for those who have physical and cognitive issues that never got to have the full high school experience, never got to go to homecoming, never got to go to prom. And so they create this big, huge ball, and the formal dresses and makeup and hair. And so I had volunteered to come do makeup. And I was sitting on that motorcycle crying, and there was that voice in my head. I don't know if you can relate, that was in there saying, you don't even need to show up. Nobody's going to miss you if you're not there. Who do you think you are? Just beating me down. And then all of a sudden I heard another voice, and that voice said, "Hey, Sammy, you want to come to the bar and sing karaoke?" hell yes, I would have gone to the bar and seen karaoke. I don't want to go home alone. They don't need me at this event. I'm a piece of trash anyway. And so I got on my bike and I was following my coworker on a road that I'd never ridden before. And Fort Knox has tanker units there. And so the tanks, as they go out to the training ground, they come across up on a hill, they hug the outside of the road so that the oncoming traffic has plenty of room. Well, those tracks of the tank tear up the asphalt. And so I was not in the right state of mind to ride a motorcycle. My mindset was very negative. I was crying. I was still upset. Number one mistake. Because I was upset, I wasn't really aware and I wasn't paying attention to my environment. Number two mistake. I saw the debris in the road, and because of number one and number two mistake, I didn't have time to respond and ended up flipping around. My bike went down, and as I hit the asphalt, my arm swung and just perfectly caught the drive belt of the motorcycle. And it sucked me into the wheel and ground off my arm from the wrist to my armpit and part of my chest, and third-degree burns all over me. And I remember seeing the debris. I remember saying, oh shit. And then I was in this space where there was absolutely no sound. I didn't feel anything. It was like my whole consciousness was just floating. And there were these beautiful, like slow motion glitter lights that were going past my vision. And I was like, just kind of stunned, and it was really beautiful. And so I followed one of the lights and I could see my boots flopping on the highway. And then I realized, oh my God, that's my feet. And I didn't know, I hadn't put together what was going on yet. I just knew those were my feet. And like every ounce of me was screaming, but there was no noise coming out of me. And I'm in this absolute panic state, and everything is still in massive slow motion. And then there was this huge explosion, and the bike came to rest in the ditch at the bottom of the hill. And when that happened, that's when the sound, it like snapped me out of it. And I could, the motor, so the sparks that I was seeing was the wheel and the foot pedal on my bike being drug on the asphalt. And the lights were the back wheel right here in front of my face. So I'm underneath this motorcycle. The throttle was stuck. The engine was screaming. I was burning. It was a horrible mess. And so I pushed myself out of that, and I looked at my arm and it was just gone. I mean, the bone was there, but it was gone. And I freaked out, and I'm running down the road screaming, oh God, oh Jesus, just in absolute panic. And the coworker in front of me stopped the truck, and she grabbed me and she laid me down in the ditch. So I'm laying in the ditch, and she was a combat veteran who had her face blown up. And so she had, cadaver body parts, and she'd gone through some massive trauma, and the scene was a bloody, massive trauma mess. So she was off trying to get herself together, and I'm laying in the ditch. And Jay, I didn't have that, that little mini video that you see in the movies about people replaying their life and the good moments and the bad moments and all. I didn't have any visuals like that, but I had this overwhelming sense of remorse, regret. I mean, I knew I just left behind a shit show. And it occurred to me as I'm getting thirsty, I was like, okay, I've got enough training. I know what's happening here. I've seen my arm, I'm bleeding out. I have a moment or two to live. And at that moment, something in my consciousness shifted, and it was almost like I could see a connect the dots puzzle in front of me. And I was able to look at my life objectively, kind of disassociated. And I was able to trace back all the decisions and the beliefs way back to my childhood that put me in that ditch. All the ones that led me to feeling suicidal, that led me to not knowing how to love myself, that led me to not knowing how to love other people, led me to not having any conflict resolution skills. It was just massively aware, just obvious to me that, okay, I had a traumatic experiences in my childhood, but I spent so much time focusing on those that they then became relived in my adult life. And so I began to realize that, oh my God, it was under my own cognition and my own power and my own subconscious focus that I recreated the traumas of my childhood over and over and over and over and over and over until it just, became a personality of depression, anxiety, anger, defensiveness. I mean, I had a wall that nobody could get through. Nobody really knew me. Didn't know how to be intimately connected with anybody, including my kids. And at that moment, I started looking real quick, right? I had only a moment. And it was just obvious that all the beliefs that I had about my self-worth weren't true. They were reflections of other people's beliefs. They were reflections of the shame that I felt in situations that I'd been put in as a child, but they weren't actually who I was. And so then I realized, wow, I didn't even live my own life. And I never allowed myself to live. I never allowed myself to be happy. I wasn't aware of who I am. I'm laying there dying. I was like, I don't even know who I am. I don't know what I like. I don't know I know a lot of what I don't like, but I don't know who I am. And now life's over. It's over. And it's what I wanted. And so I did something that I had never done before, not thoughtfully, not consciously. And I laid there, and with my good hand, I could feel the grass underneath my fingers. I could feel the light breeze. I was watching the tree leaves above me and the clouds, and I got really present in the moment. And I took a long, deep breath. And I want to invite the audience to do that with me. So just with an intention, I want you to take a long, deep breath through your nose, clear into your belly, and breathe like a baby, and just feel the sensation. Let's do it together. Just release that out your mouth. Do it another time. And as you do, just focus on the sensation of that oxygen, that life force filling your body. And then how naturally it just eases out of your body. It's so beautiful and something that we take for granted. And I started doing that. And what I didn't know then that I do know now is that act of taking a deep breath is a clear signal. It's a message to your body that you're safe. And that's why taking long, deep breaths is so calming. The act of taking that long, deep breath massages your central nervous system and relaxes it so that you're able to see things differently. You can see opportunities and you can see your environment in a much different way when your body is completely relaxed. And so I started taking a couple deep breaths and really focusing on, is this going to be my last one? Because my artery was gone. There was no, oh, maybe I'll just get up and it'll be okay. And when I started relaxing, then I just consciously decided to surrender. And I remember just saying, all right, that was the life I lived. Not real proud of it, but I'm not going to hate myself anymore. I'm not going to think of myself that way anymore. I made some mistakes based on really a lot of misinformation. I made some mistakes because I didn't have the skills to learn who I really am. I didn't have the skills to understand that I can value myself. I didn't have the skills and the awareness that I am unique and perfect just as I am. And when I went into that surrender moment, Jay, that's when I disappeared. I went into, I guess, a quantum space, you could say. My consciousness left my body. I no longer felt my body. And I was literally just like a particle of air just blowing. I was everything. I was the trees, I was the grass, I was the light, I was absolutely everything. And there was such a sense of oneness and peace and joy. And I'm in that ecstatic place. And I receive or emit, I can't even tell. It wasn't that I heard a voice or felt a voice or smelled a voice. It was just, I became aware of a truth. And in my mind, I audibly heard it. And so I heard three words just crystal clear. And it's, you are mine. You are mine. And I knew that that was the essence of the Creator, the essence of God. And I had grown up Baptist, Pentecostal, Catholic, Lutheran, Church of God, but just a whole conglomeration of messiness. And each one of those had different rules and obligations and dogmas and things that went with it. So I'd really thought God was a really sick, twisted entity that took a lot of pleasure out of saying you can have eternal life and there's free salvation, but if you screw up, you're going to hell. Just all of the stuff that comes along with a lot of religion. And so when I heard that essence, it totally didn't align with my teaching about God or religion. So all of those beliefs collapsed. And I felt a sense of joy and love and excitement that I'd never felt before. And so that source essence, that God essence, continued to communicate with me and just like systematically continued that process that started when I had done my own breathing process, just looking at my beliefs. Where did I get them? Were they true? Who taught me them? Where did that person learn them from? Where's the evidence that this is true, aside from that you kept perpetuating it your whole adult life? And I realized that I had absolutely no clue who I was and that all of my beliefs created my reality and that I had the power to change those. So I was like, cool, this is a great way to go out of this life. And at some point in that communication, a soldier came and put a tourniquet on my arm and started asking me some questions to keep me aware because I was getting really tired and, wanted me to stay awake. And when I put two and two together that I was going to live, and I had just had this complete like brain repatterning, I got so excited, Jay. I was so excited. I'm going to live. And I don't know what this life's going to be like. I don't know. I haven't a clue, but it's going to be freaking awesome. And so I just absolutely transformed from a suicidal, depressed, anxiety-ridden, fearful, angry, shameful person into like a newborn baby. I realized that I have a clean slate at this moment and every moment. And I had a complete rewiring of my belief system and my patterns. And so it was 30 days of surgeries and they cut off the remainder of the hand. I never regained use of it. And I was just so excited and so ready to get the amputation done and get out and experience life for the first time that, I immediately started talking at colleges and universities and with occupational therapists and amputees and talking about what is possible. But I didn't have the knowledge and understanding of what had actually happened to my brain. So it set me on a pattern of seeking out information. How does the body work? How does the mind-body connection work? How do we formulate our beliefs? How is our identity created? And how do we shift all that? Because you can't really plan a near-death experience. You can plan a suicide, but you can't plan on coming out of it. You can't plan on coming out with post-traumatic growth, which is what I came out with. Mostly it's post-traumatic stress disorder. So for the past 10, 11 years, I have been, just having a blast with life. I took up running a half marathon. I ran the toughest half marathon in the Northwest called Roby Creek. I had never shot archery before. I took up archery and I became a history-making Paralympic archer, shooting compound archery for the U.S. team in the 2016 Paralympics. I've traveled the world. I've spoke on stages in front of thousands of people. I've coached people on mindset. I've coached people on public speaking. And that's my whole purpose and my whole passion now is really stepping into the healing identity that that was awakened that day. Everything that was full of possibility was awakened that day. So my whole focus is helping people understand that they too are full of possibility. And that, if I'm powerful enough to create this kind of awareness tool in my life, what can I help you create in your life that isn't this traumatic? We don't all have to have a massive trauma to start going inside and finding our own value and our own true self. Now, fortunately, everything I went through is teachable. everything that I went through for my repatterning and my, redesigning of my personality and my life are teachable skills. They're just not things that you're going to find in the standard curriculum of school, college, or even in the, psychology world. Cognitive behavior therapy is the most popular change therapy in the nation, and it takes years for anything to happen. It's very disempowering because the power is still outside of you in that. So everything that you need to create the life you want is within you. So the important thing is making the decision to choose yourself. We've got to all become divinely selfish when we come through traumas. And divine selfish, I define as being so selfish that you won't allow judgment to live within you of yourself or judgment of anybody else. So that's my near-death experience. It's something that I love to share. And I love to share it because it's a tool for empowering other people to know just how much a person can change. I was suicidal 1 second, had my arm ground off, and became enthusiastic for life in the next second. That seems like a miracle, but it's a miracle that once you understand how it happens, just becomes a normal process for all of us.
So in terms of like the release, the surrender, and then it sounds like embracing something else, that's kind of similar to what a lot of people try to do with meditation. And there's other different techniques that people might use. It's kind of, in a sense, sounds like what, if you've ever watched Tony Robbins, he talks about changing your beliefs and letting go of certain things. Is that kind of what you experienced during your NDE? Is that, and it's something that anybody can experience through their normal life.
Yeah, Tony Robbins studied neurolinguistics programming, NLP, and he rebranded it because the originators of NLP were really kind of coming head to head with him. He was getting national focus and really being impactful with it. And so he branded it NEC, and I think it's neurological something conditioning, but it's all the same thing. We have a wiring system in our mind and our body. It's a biological known mechanism that has rules and laws with it. Now, we used to think that the adult brain was incapable of regrowing new neurons and incapable of change. That was one of the core beliefs that I had, and it was drilled into my head that, hey, you're 16. You are who you are. You're never going to change. So just deal with what the cards you've been given and the talents that you're aware of, because that's it. But we now know that you can absolutely collapse and rewire neurological patterns in the brain. So when you've probably heard that somebody that listens to a lecture will retain 10% of the information. And I'm going to make up the percentages because I don't remember them. I just know there's a drastic difference between them. If you listen and read, you retain a little bit more. But if you listen, read, and write so that you're physically involved in the learning aspect, and then you repeat the information day after day, study, you're going to retain a lot more. So it's the active physical engagement in it. And what that does is you're learning something new, and they've got video of this now. So anytime you're exposed to something new, a neuron will grow, and they can watch them grow. And it's these little fingers. And then if you don't go back and practice, those neurons will recede and die in atrophy. So the more that you reinforce that new learning, the thicker those neurological dendrites get, and they actually get wrapped in something called myelin. Myelin is the difference between a dirt path and a superhighway. The more myelin you have on a neurological pathway, the faster the information travels on that, and the more permanent it is. So permanency happens with intensity and repetition. Now, my near-death experience was freaking intense. So my new beliefs were rewired and myelin sheaths like you wouldn't believe. So there's different modalities. I don't know if you've heard of emotional freedom technique or tapping.
I haven't heard.
Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't heard about it. Mm-mm.
Yeah. So it's a great way for somebody that is wanting to repattern a belief. Now, this can be something from as mundane or non-life shifting as a weightlifter that wants to, hasn't been able to break, I don't know, deadlifting 500 pounds. And the reason he can't break that is because he has a limiting belief that that's something he can't break. So tapping involves just physically tapping on neurological pathway centers of the head as you're stating what you're frustrated at, what you're angry at, what you're limited at, what your disbelief is. So, I just can't break 500 pounds deadlift. And I've never been able to do it. I can get to 499, but I can't. So so what you're doing is you're activating that superhighway of that belief. And the act of tapping on these points is kind of like an earthquake. So there's tension, there's energy going through that belief system, and there's vibratory, like breaking of the state. So what that does is that collapses the structure of that belief. And then while tapping, you're going to slowly start changing what you're saying, and you're going to reinforce your new belief. And so that reinforces the new highway and makes that belief a possibility instead of a impossibility. And it's amazingly effective. So let's say that you're in an anxiety attack. You can use tapping and just fully get your whole body into the issue that is giving you problems. Just go all in. If it needs to be an ugly cry while you're doing it, do it. Get all in, because you're going to be disrupting that belief system in your brain and your body. And then slowly start talking yourself into a belief that you want to have. And this is where having a coach and a guide can really, really help, because it's hard for somebody that has believed their whole life that they're not worth something, or that they're not valuable, or that they can't do something, or that something is not a possibility, for them to go from a heightened anxiety, depressive state to then reinforcing a positive. Having a coach and a guide for that's very important. But that's just one of the tools that we've learned. Now, language is a system of symbols to convey meaning from one person to the next. So we can use language patterns to activate limiting beliefs in your mind. And then through, it's almost like trickery. We're going to use some visualizations that are tied with those beliefs. So you have a visualization of something you hate, and you have a visualization of something you love. And we can actually cross those visuals in your mind to confuse your body, and so that you're no longer opposed or disbelieving something that would truly happen to you or truly help you. You're no longer believing that disbelief, and you're establishing a new belief. So neuro NLP was one of the things that I studied. And when I went back and I looked at my near-death experience, I was like, oh my God, that creative source, God, did timeline on me, took me back, and I was objectively looking at my life, but I was doing it from a disassociated position. So I wasn't looking through my eyes in the memory. I was looking at me from a disassociated perspective. And when you look at situations in your past from a disassociative perspective, you actually don't trigger the response in your body, and you're able to see the whole situation from a new perspective that allows you to have a shift in your awareness of what was possible in that moment, what belief you attached to it, and how you can attach a different belief to it. So that's another NLP technique, timeline. And then I learned about breath work. People are talking about doing deep breaths. And I always just thought it was breathe into a paper bag. And I never really understood the science behind it. But breath work is a foundational starting point for anybody that wants to shift their beliefs, because when we're tense in the body, our minds are shut down. And what actually is conveyed to the body and the mind when you take long, deep, slow breaths, that is a primal message to the body that you're safe. And when your body feels safe, it's open to transformation and change. When it doesn't feel safe, nothing is going to shift, nothing is going to change, and no information is going to get in and stick. So anytime you're going into any learning situation or any situation where you want to have a broader perspective of the possibilities and you want a different outcome, practicing deep breathing called pranayama is key and essential. If you will just give breathing exercises a try, you will absolutely be shocked. Go into it with an open mind, and you're going to be shocked at just how much better you feel and how many more possibilities that you see. So taking that breath work and calming that mind body then also does something else that we've now got some scientific evidence for, and that's the brain heart coherence. So the heart actually emits an electromagnetic signal like 3 or 4 feet outside of your body. It is the strongest electromagnetic center in your whole body. Your brain, we've all had like the EKGs where they have to put the pad on your brain to read the signal. They can actually read the heart's brain without even touching the body. So there are signals going from the heart to the brain all the time. They have found neurological cells in the heart that are similar to the brain that can learn, that can that have memory, and that emit signals. So they've discovered now that the heart is sending more signals to the brain than the brain is sending to the heart. So when you're doing breathing practices and focusing on an emotion that has a high vibration like gratitude and compassion and love and appreciation, what it does is it harmonizes the signal from the heart and it harmonizes the signal from the brain so that they're not scattered and canceling each other out anymore. So you've got your central nervous system calmed, you've got your heart and your mind in coherence now. And that is a perfect prime opportunity for you to learn, for you to heal, and for you to grow. So when I was laying in that ditch, I'm laying on the ground. I'm aware of the energy and the earth energy from the ground. I'm breathing. I'm calming my central nervous system. I started looking back at my life and not judging myself. So I was going more into a sense of appreciation. All of those things allowed me then to open up to the higher level consciousness experience of that situation. Now, I think that that's probably a key between why I didn't come away from it with PTSD and I came away from it with post-traumatic growth, is because in that moment I made the decision to forgive myself, and I was subconsciously doing things that the body naturally requires to get in a safe place so that I could shift my mindset and my beliefs. So yeah, I've spent the past decade studying how humans take on identity, how are beliefs created, how are they shifted, you know, what is the balance? Like all transformation happens in the balance between challenge and support. And Jay, I don't have to tell you, this world has gone through a very traumatic experience and is still going through a very traumatic experience right now. And as a planet, as a community, we need to get the message out more that we are the absolute authority of our life and that the change that we want is already within us, and create more communities where there is a support system and actually some structure of, all right, let's go through ways that you can change you. The whole goal of everything I do is to become obsolete to those people that I'm helping. I don't want to become anybody's guru, long-term coach, mentor, any of that. I want to give and transfer skills to people that are ready to receive them and are willing to do the work so that they can become their own healer and their own sovereign authority, which they already are. They just aren't aware. So that's my whole passion. And I'm so completely grateful for my near-death experience. I'm so grateful that I have this beautiful symbol of how powerful I am, of what I can create. Because if I can create something this traumatic, I know every day that I can create the opposite of it. Because in every problem, there's a solution, there's a provision. I don't know if you're familiar with Abraham Hicks. Abraham is a channeled entity consciousness. Yes, the Esther Hicks channels. And there's the metaphor that Abraham uses that I really like. Everything in life is like a stick. We'll use this pen. On one end is everything that lines up with love and gratitude and compassion. And on the other hand is everything that lines up energetically with fear, hate, shame, guilt. So we all have this compass within us, right? Now, the difference between my life now, where I'm leading with my love stick forward was before I was leading with my fear stick forward. Every thought I had was coming from the end of fear, shame, and guilt. So this is a beautiful tool that people can look at, just stopping and taking a moment and what was the thought that I was just having? What am I feeling in my body? Does it feel like the love end of the stick or the fear end of the stick? Because if it feels like the fear end of the stick, then it's simple. Okay, I'm having a thought that doesn't feel good. I'm going to choose to have a different thought. And Jay, that may sound like a childish little game, but that tool right there, that skill right there will absolutely change your life in ways that you can't even fathom. Just knowing how to become aware of what you're feeling, and is that feeling coming from fear? Is the belief based on fear, shame, guilt? Or is it based on love, compassion, and gratitude? And then just simply shifting. Realize that the end of the fear stick, the other end is the love stick, and you can shift at any moment. And as you're learning this skill, your compass is going to be like this. It's going to be leading from its normal, comfortable, habitual patterns, right? But the more moments that you can say, nope, I'm going to change my decision and I'm going to make a different choice. You may go for the next 2 minutes and that stick's going to go back to what it's normal. But the more times you practice that in your subconscious mind, that repetition. Remember when I said how beliefs and habits get created? It's through intensity and repetition. That repetition, subconscious mind is lazy. It really is. Whatever is getting fed to it frequently, in a pattern, in habits, more and more frequently, it's finally going to just say, all right, we're just going to start. This is what the information I'm getting now. Subconscious mind doesn't have a filter. It doesn't say, oh, well, this is love and this is fear. And I know she wants love, so we're just not going to do these fear things. It's all just, it's like a computer. Whatever you're putting into it, that's what's going to get spit out. So it's up to us to reprogram and repattern ourselves. So that's another like little simple exercise. And the Jay, there's thousands of them.
Yeah, you know what?
And
Oh, go ahead.
if you go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say so many
No, go ahead. I
things.
would love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so many things are resonating with like what I think about meditation, because people in meditation, we do things like visualization, we focus on gratitude, love, compassion, we do deep breathing, we do so many of the different things you're talking about, and we see studies that say meditation helps with all these different things, but we don't really have a grounding in terms of understanding all of the science. We have science saying meditation works and we do these things, but I didn't realize that there was specific studies on so many of these different things like gratitude and focusing your attention and things like that. And it's just kind of interesting to hear. And then I was also thinking about when you said having an emotional state where you are transformed, and coming from a Baptist Pentecostal background, you think of people that have had those real emotional born again experiences. Not saying that God isn't there, but they're having a profound emotional experience in many cases. And especially like when they're doing like a 180, like if they're a drug addict, an alcoholic, a gangbanger, and then they have an emotional experience with God and change direction. It sounds kind of like what you're talking about, that they're having an emotional shift in their consciousness. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. It is. And, I had some beautiful experiences in my religion growing up. My mother was healed of like 12 cysts and tumors in her breast. I mean, I saw miracles. I received the gift of the Holy Spirit and I can speak in tongues. All of those things were real. And what I realized is that, God doesn't necessarily change. The source of energy that science has proven, there is consciousness throughout all things, that there is an energy that holds all things together. And so you can look at God is that energy, that consciousness. And what shifts is our ability, it's our filters. What shifts is our ability to see aspects of God. So my religious background exposed me to a couple experiences where I felt some sort of divine love. And now again, I felt this end of the stick. There was a lot of this end of the stick with religion in my experience. However, it was a stepping stone in my pathway home to realizing that I am one with everybody. Science has proven that already. We all have a macabre. It's an energetic field, an aura that we emit, and vibration never ends. So my vibration, Jay, literally is reaching you wherever you physically are. It's reaching your whole audience. We are literally connected like that. So because we are all connected and yet live in this linear world, we're trained that there is a right way of doing things. That's what religion is. It's all right. You want to get to God. Here's the right way. Here's the path. And what I come to realize is that all roads lead to God eventually. And wherever you're at, if you're if you're Amish and that brings you peace, good on you. If you're an atheist and that brings you peace, great. If you're a Christian, a Pentecostal, a Buddhist, a Muslim, a Jew, it doesn't matter. If that gives you a sense of love and safety and security and peace, great. Eventually, we're all going to come to the realization that we are all one. I like what Jesus said. He said, don't you realize that you are all God's and that you're going to do greater things than I've done? And for me, that was kind of a hard thing to work through. Jay, it wasn't easy shifting my beliefs about Jesus and God and Christianity, even after my near-death experience, because I was so programmed that I could never be like Jesus. The goal was to be like Jesus, but Jesus was perfect and we can never be perfect. And I've come to realize Jesus wasn't perfect. Jesus realized that he was God and that we all came to this earth to have the experience of being God in expression. And so there is no right or wrong. Jesus felt all emotion, but he knew he was the master of himself. He was divinely selfish, and he didn't allow judgment to live within him. He could feel it, but he always chose what he was going to put his focus on. And it was never judging or condemning. It was always grace and love and compassion, those emotions. And so I'm going to connect this back with the heart-mind coherence. I'd like to direct your audience to go on the Heart Math Institute website. And they are the central point for the science for heart-mind coherence. And what they have discovered is in the meditative breathing process that when participants will start doing the breathing process and then focus on emotions such as compassion. Compassion is an objective view of life without judgment. So it's just observation without judgment. That's compassion. Or they focus on appreciation. Again, just seeing the beautiful things in life without judgment. Or love without judgment. And gratitude. Gratitude seems to be the most highest elevation vibration that we can emit. And so if you focus on one of those four, appreciation, compassion, love, or gratitude, that gets your heart and mind into rapid coherence. So, Jesus focused on those things, felt everything, but focused and therefore expressed love and compassion. That's why people wanted to be around him so much. He was emitting that vibration. It's very, very attractive. So, yeah, heart-mind coherence. I would love for your audience to get on that and just check that out. And going back to your point of, we hear a lot about meditation. When I talk to people about, do they meditate? And if the answer is no, asking them why, they're just like, oh, it's so frustrating. I can't get my mind to shut down. And so I'd like to take an opportunity to maybe shed some light on a different way of looking at meditation, if I may. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So meditation is an internal practice of becoming aware of what you're feeling and an internal practice of not judging it. So it's almost like you become an observer in the theater watching your emotions. So when you're meditating, and your first thing is just to start off in this awareness practice, practice a meditation of breathing in through your nose and out through your nose and keeping the mind busy. So as you're breathing in, you can say, I'm breathing in. And as you breathe out, say in your mind, I'm breathing out. And it'll keep you focused on, I'm breathing in. I'm breathing out. And just focus on the sensation of the air going through your nostrils. Maybe focus on the sensation of your belly rising and falling. And if you find yourself thinking about, God, I really need to be doing X, go right back to I'm breathing in and I'm breathing out. And what I'd like to invite the audience to remove from a practice like that is judgment, not shit. I'm thinking about, what I'm going to cook for breakfast again, or the dishes that I need to do. Just gently bringing your awareness back to I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. And what that's like is like going to the gym for the first time in 10 years and doing a push-up. You may be only able to do one correct push-up. And then the next week you can do 2. And the next week you can do 3. Nobody goes to a gym and expects to do 100 push-ups. And meditation is a skill of self-awareness. So give yourself some grace and compassion and realize that if you can meditate for 30 seconds, do it. It's going to have immense benefits on your health. Because another aspect of the calming the central nervous system and the mind-heart coherence is when you're in that state, you actually start switching on healing genes. Genes in your body are either down-regulated or up-regulated. The science that we used to be taught that you're born with genes that produce cancer, well, you've got this gene of cancer running through your family, has now been scientifically proven false. We have genes that either due to the way we're thinking in the environment that we're in that will down-regulate and lead to disease, or they will up-regulate and lead to the production of healing hormones. So down-regulated genes produce cortisol and all sorts of hormones that cause stress and disease in the body. A gene that's upregulated, again, will produce healing hormones. So we're not born with genes for this or that. It has been proven that our environment and our thoughts, what we focus on, create the distress, the disease in our body, and that's what causes disease. So the more time that you can get your mind and body in coherence and your central nervous system calmed, the more time in that day you're going to be producing healing hormones, and that's going to have an accumulative effect on your life. And you are slowly going to start feeling better, sleeping better. So if I could share, leave the audience with one thing, it's just start a practice, 30 seconds a day. I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. You can do that in the bathroom stall. You can do that while you're getting dressed. You can do it at any time. Meditation doesn't have to be 30 minutes of quiet silence in your mind. That's just not, the mind is designed to process and make meaning of the environment. That's its job. That's the computer software that we have. So working within it without shaming it and making it become something else that we're upset and distressed about is really key and vital.
Yeah, and I talk about like doing a mini meditation when you do 1 to 3 minutes, and that can help you build up to longer, more structured meditations. And I just focus on breath, visualization, and a calming phrase, and just go from there. And I kind of use that as a tool to help people build up too. So that sounds very similar. And I was thinking when you said about Jesus, where that verse where it says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, I came to realize that, well, his way, his truth, and his life is love. So when a person connects in love, they're connecting to the same way as Jesus. And so that's how people of different faiths could possibly be connecting up, like if you're Buddhist or you're Jewish, if you're connecting in a heart of love, you're on the same way as Jesus, if that makes sense, And I heard a Catholic priest was saying one time,
Yeah, I think you've,
yeah. I heard a Catholic priest saying one time, there's one way, but there's many expressions of that one way. So, I think that's kind of how I came to understand that verse, because a lot of times people throw that verse out to kind of divide out other people.
Yeah, I think taking it on a superficial level that Jesus himself, the physical expression of humanity, is the way, the truth, and the life. I love your perception on it. It's going, we're not our bodies. Who was Jesus? Well, Jesus was the expression of love. So I really like that you've taken that and gone past that surface layer. And I think that you've hit on something. I think I completely can see that. Yeah, all roads lead to Rome, and all roads that lead to God and unity and oneness are paved with love.
So in terms of like what you do you have people come in for sessions and you lead them through different processes to heal? Do they go into a trance-like state or a meditative state while you're working with them?
There's always breath work involved in everything I do, because again, you want to get yourself in an energetic and cognitive space for seeing different opportunities and possibilities. So breath work is foundational. And I do work with an animal medicine from the rainforest called Kambo, Kambo. And it is wonderful for healing the body, both mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. It's got 16 peptides in it. It's a toxin from the bicolor Philomedusa bicolor frog in the rainforest. And what the toxin does is it has 16 peptides that the body naturally produces. So when you put it on the skin in a gateway, it's going to enter the body and it opens up the vascular system. The cells open up to it and it starts scrubbing out all the debris and all the waste and the toxic waste, and it crosses the blood-brain barrier. It's one of the few medicines that does. And it starts upregulating it and upregulating those healing hormones. So it's a massively powerful healing tool. And I combine that with some hypnosis, with a process that I call cellular command. So it's a body-mind connection. So everything that I do is designed to connect the body, mind, and spirit, because we're not just the body, we're not just the mind, we're not just spirit, we're one. And I think it's time that we start seeing ourselves as this blend, instead of making the mind the bad thing, or the body this thing that gets us around but mostly fails us, and the spirit something that we can't even attain to. Start working with the three aspects of ourselves in a really holistic and healthy way. So that's with Kambo. I also work with people on movement and breath work, and I can talk to your audience about the new program that I'm doing. I'm now remote. So if it's not Kambo, that's the only thing that I do in person. I work completely remote now through my program, Let's Talk Shift. And Let's Talk Shift is everything that we've just been talking about. It was born out of my desire to find the technologies and understand how the mind-body system works, so that I can help people take their own power and learn how to create their own shifts. Like I said, I want to be obsolete for my clients, because you're the most powerful being in your whole existence. There is nothing that you need outside of you. So I guide people how to go inside and find their power, find their true self, and learn the skills of how to love yourself and how to have compassion in yourself and how to discover what your true values are. And I'm also holding a retreat this fall in Idaho. So if anybody wants to come and get 5 days with some other healers that I have, we're going to deep dive into some basic quantum and biological systems that are going to help you shift. By the end of the 5 days, you're going to know exactly what your highest values are, the difference between your highest values, what you're valuable for, and where your value lies. So it's a really deep dive into self-awareness. There is, of course, going to be breathing practices. There's going to be meditation practices, massage, a lot of exercises for you to start unlocking those internal locks within you that are hiding the wisdom and the knowledge and the innate amazingness in each one of us. And then at the end, there's a bonus 2 days for those that want to stay. I work with an amazing shaman that's of the Toltec tradition, and he will be coming in at the end of the 2 days to offer some plant medicines. We'll be doing combo, we'll be doing ayahuasca, probably some hape, and those are great, great systems. And we could probably have a different conversation about how plant medicines and animal medicines are kind of a jump start to some of the healing processes. But that would probably be a different conversation, because if you want to really get into it, there's a lot to share and explore. So in answer to your question, I have online services and in person when it's dealing with holding a retreat or working with Kambo.
So in terms of a person healing, is it more of a gradual or is it a rapid process? And does it depend on the particular situation and person as to how rapidly they heal as you work with them?
Yeah, there's no, oh my God, you're going to have this amazing aha, because we're all so different. There are learnings that once you have those embodied, you're never going to be the same. So like anything, the participants that come to the retreat or that work with me with Kambo are going to get out of it as much as they allow themselves to get out of it. When you're dealing with any sort of transformative experience, any sort of medicine, any sort of practice or technology, the important aspects of it are what we call set and setting. So what's your mindset and what's the setting? Are you in a safe environment? Are you in a setting that supports transformation? So working first on what's your mindset? What are you hoping to get out of this? Are you somebody that comes into an experience that has the mindset that you need to fix me is not going to get the change and shift that somebody that says, I want to change, help me do it. Completely different filters, completely different abilities to see and apply possibilities. So working on that self-awareness and that self-accountability. Now, that said, there are some technologies, like there's some phobia processes through neurolinguistics programming that can get rid of phobias in 30 minutes to an hour, where in cognitive behavior therapy, that's a 15-year process. So things can absolutely shift very, very quickly. Another key is, are you doing the work afterwards? And that's why I like to bring a lot of the science into it. It's like, okay, you see yourself differently right now. You see possibilities differently right now. This is going to take continued work. You didn't come to the gym, knock out 100 push-ups, and then never have to do any again in your life. This is a starting process. We're going to do everything we can to wrap that new belief with some myelin sheath so it's more permanent, but you have to leave and you do the work. We're going to equip you with that. And you now have a community where you can go through all of these shifts and these transformation. And like, it feels like you're in the middle of an earthquake sometimes, because when your realities start to crumble and you're building new ones, you don't relate to your family and friends the way you used to anymore. They see you differently. Sometimes they don't like the change, because if you change too much, you may leave them. So it can be a very intense feeling of isolation and loneliness if you don't have a good community. And I think we're all about tired of isolation and loneliness. At least I know a lot of the people I've talked to, they're just really excited to be able to engage with people. And a lot of people I've talked to have said, you know, Sam, the past couple of years I've been home alone. I haven't had the distractions that I didn't realize I was using to keep myself from looking at myself in the mirror. And I haven't had the distractions, and I feel, you know, I've gone inside, I've made some healing, I've made some changes, and I feel really weird. I feel freakish. I feel strange. My friends don't understand me. Like, I feel so alone. I don't want to stop, because I'm starting to really appreciate myself and love myself for the first time, but I feel freaking alone. And so that's where providing that community is super, super important. So yeah, you're going to get massive quick shifts. You're going to have to do the work to maintain them and sustain them. And then there's going to be little shifts during the experience that you're not even aware of, that will kind of be like little corks that start to slowly float up to the top of the surface as you're continuing to do the work. And you're going to have more aha moments continuing on, especially if you stay involved in the communities that we have for this continued healing. So
So where
Lots of
can,
possibility depending on how active you want to be involved.
yeah. So where can people find you on social media? And do you have
Yeah,
any
so let me write.
Okay.
I do have a project. I have been able to find a really beautiful way to achieve the type of environment and community that I've been desiring all along. As we've talked, I've done a lot of study, a lot of training on what are the technologies and what's the science behind massive shifts in people. So a lot of that is some of the books that I've read that have produced massive awareness and shifts in me are kind of tend to be meaty books. They're books that have a lot of exercises in them. And what I discovered early on is if I was reading a book and I got out a notebook and I would write down the exercise and it would say, all right, give 20 examples of blah, blah, blah. I would answer the question and go through the book, and sometimes I'd get a good outcome. Sometimes I wouldn't. But I realized when I went back later and I'd look at like the work that I had done for the book, oftentimes I would not answer maybe question 3 because I didn't think it was relevant. Or if I was supposed to provide 50 answers to question 2, I only got to 32 because I thought that was pretty good enough. And so what I came to discover is a lot of these books have these intense exercises because you got to get past the initial surface level answers that we provide about social norms. Like, what are the things that you value in a relationship? I value love. I value trust. I value integrity. These are all great things to value, but they're very general, broad scope things. But when you have to give 50 answers to what do you value in a relationship, you're going to write off the first 20 or just the ones that you should value, right? Like love, trust, things like that. But then the more you're forced to dig past that surface level, that's where the true gold comes up. And that's where you're really going to start getting into what your true values are. What do you truly value? You're also going to start understanding who you are when you stop saying that you are all these social norms. So that's one of the things that I found in the books and in the study. And I also realized that if it was an Audible book, I would have a hard time going back to, well, that section that talked about exercise 3, how do I find that? And then I was also going through these experiences, sometimes depending on the stage of life I was in, with a really good supportive community. And sometimes I was by myself. And I realized that the times that I was by myself were the times that I would not finish the book. And I wouldn't get out of it what was possible to get out of it. So I've come up with a program called Let's Talk Shift. And I have created a program with all of the top books that really, really produce massive shift. And I've created my worksheets that have the fillable fields in each one. So if question 3 needs 50 answers, there's 50 fillable forms. You've got to put an answer in there. And if you don't, you're cheating yourself. And you can't just look at a page and go, wow, that's a lot of answers. You immediately see I've cheated myself. And I've narrated the books in sections that are related to the exercise. So it's very bite size. So what we get together is I'll send you the videos or the audio file if you want audio, the worksheets. You do the work in a sectional achievable chunk. And at the end of the week or 2 weeks, we get together as a community and share. What did we discover about that? What was hard? Did you finish it? Were you able to finish it? What's your stumbling block? And in that group, I can help coach and guide people and help kind of break through some of the barriers that they have. And another beautiful benefit from that is if Sharon is talking about a breakthrough and she realized this aspect of her life really wasn't true for her, but she had been living it, she'd been living somebody else's life. Well, that may speak to somebody else's situation and they can learn from it and they can have an internal aha. Because when we get together and we share, just like we're doing here on this podcast, Jay, sharing our stories are how we are designed to learn. It's all through story. So it's very, very powerful. And then of course, the next week, the next section of the book is accessible and you build on that first section, answering the exercises and questions, and they come together and we build on it. And so that we are with each other in community through this whole shift. One It's designed so that you don't cheat yourself. And if you do, it's really obvious. It's designed that you have a community of people who are going through the same exact thing. You're not the freak. You're not the weird one. You're in a safe place. I also involve and give meditations and breathing practices in each exercise. I use the things that I used in my personal life, and I've packaged it together so that you can have the full experience, bringing in the science and the technologies and the community and support. Because like I said earlier, transformation happens on the border, that connection between challenge and support. And if you want to transformation absolutely requires, demands that you live, be, and do differently. That's really hard to do alone. So Let's Talk Shift is the community and the structure for massive shift that's absolutely going to change your life in a way that isn't overwhelming and provides massive community and support. So that's Let's Talk Shift. And I have all the links for everything that I sent you. Let's Talk Shift in Facebook and Instagram. And I'll have information on the retreat that we're going to hold in the Sawtooth Mountains, McCall, Idaho, in fall, probably the first week of October. And it's going to be a massive immersive experience where you're going to go in, and our objective, our outcome for that retreat, Jay, is for true self-emergence. It's a women's only retreat, so there's no men allowed, because we're going to get into the defined feminine aspect of each woman and start bringing out that true beauty and that inner joy and that inner wisdom that we all have. And you're going to leave the retreat with a really deep understanding of what drives you and what is needed, what you already have inside of you to create the life that you want. Because Jay, one of the things that studies have found is that there are common regrets that people have at the end of their life. The number one regret of dying people is that they didn't live their own life. They never allowed themselves to be happy. So in our workshop or in our retreat, True Self-Emergence, you're going to start shedding that stuff so that when you do breathe your last breath, you don't look back like I did and say, I didn't live my own life. I never allowed myself to be happy. I didn't even know what my own dreams were. So that's Let's Talk Shift and True Self-Emergence Retreat. And we'll have all of the information below so that your amazing audience, if it is in alignment with them, like I said, all paths lead to, all paths lead to God, all paths lead to healing. But if it does sound like something that's in alignment, I'd love for you to reach out to me. I've given you my Calendly link as well, so people can just get on there and book a 30-minute call with me, and we can explore what the possibilities are.
Yeah, thank you. That was really good. And thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay, for having me. I really love that you're doing this, because there is so much misunderstanding about near-death experiences. And I think that it's a beautiful experience. And I remember right after I had mine, I just was like, oh God, if I could just bottle this and just drop it in everybody's water so that they could experience this, I would. But everybody has their own path to healing. So I'm honored to be on your show, and I'm honored to help anybody that feels in alignment with, my message.
Yeah, thank you. We were honored to have you.